Is this going to kill World of Warcraft? Is a question that crops up every time a new MMO is released or gains a newfound popularity. And what is the answer to that question near enough every single time? No. I'm Mantas, and today we're looking at the term WoW killer, what it means, what it could be, and why I personally think that nothing is a WoW killer or will be in the near future. Let's start at what a WoW killer means, and it's simple. An MMO that can topple World of Warcraft and finally kill it. Looking at the Google Trend report, you can see that the conversation about a WoW killer started in late 2004. I struggled to find historical figures for subscriber counts, unfortunately, so I had to rely on this Reddit post from CallSignViper 10 years ago. But in December of 2005, the game was at roughly 5 million subscribers, rising to around 8 million over the next year and a half. It's healthy to talk about what could kill a game, and at a certain point, WoW was too big to fail in my eyes. Is that the case now? To a certain extent, yes, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. The conversation of a WoW killer comes up literally every time a new MMO is announced, or some news gains traction of how amazing it's going to be. And this handy chart indicates some of the issues with these MMOs that are found on Asmongold's Reddit, where you can see the last ranges from underwhelming releases, destroyed by corporate greed, and unrealistic expectations. Some people do want to watch the world burn, and in this game, the World of Warcraft, they've got every right to. The game doesn't appeal to some, and that's okay. If you don't like it, then simply don't play it. But I can easily say the game isn't going to die. A similar question of is WoW dead comes up a lot as well, with people giving reasons like a dwindling player base, expansions not being of people's liking, and also an empty world. But again, no, the game is not dead. A lot of times the question comes up during a lull in content, either between expansions when people have achieved what they've wanted to achieve and take a small hiatus from the game, or between patches when the content drought has begun, which has happened a few times. But you know what? Whenever the next expansion releases or a new patch comes out, people come back time and time again, and I can't see that changing anytime soon. You do get some people that can and will play the game throughout the entire expansion lifespan, finding multiple things to do within that time, and that's great. It's really good that people can find fulfillment in a game like WoW, whether it be raiding, dungeons, PvP, arena, or even making alts. Personally, ever since Legion, my endgame in World of Warcraft has been heroic raiding and getting the ahead of the curve achievement. Complete the raid and the lore for the patch and then take a break, as the gaps in between raids allow me to explore the game and do other things, and that's what I get from WoW personally. Aside from Warlords of Draenor, I've enjoyed every expansion. I would like to say I've enjoyed the concept of Warlords, and Black Hand's raid was a pretty good one. The entire expansion just left me feeling a bit underwhelmed. I think it was the same for a lot of people, but World of Warcraft still survived. We got Legion after that, and that honestly was one of the best expansions that we've had so far. Every expansion you'll have doomsayers saying how this is it, the game is finally dead. How could you do this to us, Blizzard? But they then continue to play it. A week, a month, a year later, they always tend to come back to see what's changed. Let's take a quick look at subscriber numbers. Roughly a year into the release of the game, there were around 5 million subscribers, with the biggest peak in 2010, where the game had 12 million. And according to this article here by headphonesaddict.com, the game has around 8 million monthly players, with daily counts being anywhere from 700,000 to 1.65 million. In 2022, the subscriber count so far has been roughly 4.6 million people, and with a third of the players playing WoW Classic, showing that WoW is far from dead. These statistics aren't inclusive of the Dragonflight statistics at the time of making this video. Bearing in mind this is how the closest competitors are doing compared to World of Warcraft, with Final Fantasy being the biggest one, and during Shadowlands there was even a mass exodus from WoW to Final Fantasy, as people weren't happy with the state of the game. But Shadowlands played out. Even I played Final Fantasy until I completed the main story to unlock the Gunner class, but stopped promptly after to get back into WoW. No particular reason aside from returning to WoW since a new patch had launched, and something I can give massive praise to is the free trial that Final Fantasy offers. It's absolutely incredible, the amount of content and expansions you get for free. It's a lot better than World of Warcraft in my eyes, but they are two different games, and I don't have any ideas really on how WoW could make a better tutorial / free play period. To briefly talk about WoW's tutorial, it's one that allows you to play up to level 20, which includes the Exiles Reach starter campaign. Once this is done, you'll be directed towards the Battle for Azeroth content, with veteran players being able to choose other expansions. There are limitations that are built into starter accounts, such as the inability to level past level 20, no access to guilds or party formation outside of dungeons, limited access to chat channels, no trading or auction houses either. Even with these limitations, you can still get a feel for the game and see if you enjoy it. and I've seen this with my own friends giving World of Warcraft a go. I feel like there is enough content there for someone to make a good decision on whether or not the game is for them, but not enough to kind of persuade some new players who are unsure about MMOs to keep on playing. A lot of factors go into WoW's survival, with each having its pros and cons. Namely how Blizzard do tend to solve issues within the expansion eventually, how the game provides consistent game updates with some content droughts and the sunk cost fallacy. There are a lot of other factors, but for the sake of not making this video too long, those are the three that I'm going to speak about. WoW is a subscription based game and the price is around £9.99 or $9.99, it depends what currency you use. Or you can buy a WoW token to use as a subscription base. The fact that we pay for a subscription denotes premium quality and feel. No in-game pay-to-win transactions with the Blizzard store solely boasting cosmetic items or level boosts which don't exactly give any players advantages within the game, and frankly I'm more than okay paying a small fee per month for the upkeep and maintenance of the game. I've personally not encountered many game-breaking bugs, and where there are bouts of disconnections or server troubles, they do tend to get resolved. When there are bigger problems, not technical but more in-game, such as grind that isn't needed or gameplay issues that were present in beta and not fixed upon release, is where things tend to get a bit choppy. Like I mentioned in my previous Shadowlands video, during the alpha and beta stages there were issues that were mentioned in bug reports and evaluations, but those were not fully addressed or fixed, and some persisted well into the expansion's release, with fixes eventually being done well into the expansion. And the same can be said about the Azerite system, which had many complaints ranging from the alpha stages until BFA was finally coming to a close, which does present a problem. Obviously it can be seen that Blizzard doesn't listen and they do what they want, but obviously they do care, they do listen, and a lot of the issues do tend to get resolved before they make it into the live game. And when it comes to certain features that don't get the most positive reception, then there is usually a limited amount of things that they can do. Watching Preacher's video, which I'll link, is clear that things are planned well in advance, because it takes a lot of time for Blizzard to actually create the content that we consume. The systems and groundwork need to be laid, and that isn't made available to a lot of people's knowledge until it's already well under production. With Dragonflight being released, even though they are working on content patches that we'll see over the next year or so, they also begin working on the next expansion, which means that when it comes to certain features and gameplay, we won't see massive improvements until the new expansion comes into play, where we can see feature changes in a more positive light. Thankfully, Blizzard are changing how they're doing things, and it seems like going forward now they are changing how certain gameplay elements work. Content that's being released now should be relevant going forward in some ways, even if they're not obvious. And seriously, do watch Preacher's video because he explains that a hell of a lot better than I can. But with this, it means that content or gameplay that is popular and enjoyable should stay relevant in some way, shape or form, and allow for it to still be enjoyed a while later, cutting down on the need to endlessly create a new system or a new type of way to play the game. I do believe this is what's referred to as evergreen content. This consistent release of content with 0.1, 0.2, 0.3 patches and smaller patches like 0.1, 0.5 or 0.2.5 means that big and little things can get added into games to give it a breath of life every so often. The new content allows a surge of players to resubscribe and experience what the team have been working on. To be frank, I think the way that players quit the game and then get back into it is really healthy. You feel burnt out, that's no problem. You can quit and get back to it whenever you choose. Like Ian says,
we never want, our goal is never habit in the sense of like you have to log in when you don't want to. Our goal is for you to want to log in. Our goal is for you to want to play World of Warcraft and to look forward to getting back into the game, to have something you want to complete, something you want to chase.
That if you feel like you need to play the game, then they are doing something wrong. They want you to feel like you want to play the game, which I feel like they're on the right track, honestly. At the time of writing this, Dragonflight is about 2 weeks old and it still feels fresh for me. I don't feel like the grind is anywhere near as bad as it was before. Don't get me wrong, you have the option to grind out reputation and be ahead of others, but you don't need to. You can grind out Obsidian keys to max out Rathian or Sibelian rep, but you don't have to. And I think having the option to do it rather than making players feel like they need to is vital. That way it caters to a larger portion of the player base and ultimately retains players for longer, as those that do grind it out immediately tend to move on to something else. Moving on to my final point, the sunk cost fallacy, and it's best to start off by defining it. Sunk cost fallacy is a phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a course of action because of the heavy investment that they have in it. In this case, the idea is that because of the amount of money spent in terms of buying expansions and game time alongside cosmetics if you're into that, people may be reluctant to leave something behind even if they don't enjoy it anymore. Now, I'm not saying that this is a negative point. Obviously, if you put time and money into something, you want to feel like you're getting your worth out of it. and for the majority of the player base, they do. They see the achievements, the amounts, the collections, and the memories that they have had with friends and guildmates as the payoff for this investment. But you do get people who are the opposite. They hate the game and they want everyone to know it. By that, it's those people who tend to be the main culprits behind stating how World of Warcraft is a dead game, and it's going to be gone before you know it. How it's dying and that everyone should just stop playing it. Why? Because seeing people enjoy something that they hate makes them furious. It makes them angry beyond anything because their enjoyment of that game is gone. But that's what gets the headlines and clicks usually, negativity. But the fact is that so many people still play the game and go back into it even if they've took a hiatus for a year or longer, to see what's new, to reconnect with old friends, or to try new challenging content. And that just goes to show you that evidently there's something that just appeals to them about the game, that appeals to the idea of getting lost once again into a world full of adventure where you can play the game how you want to play it. To round off the video, it'd be stupid if I didn't finish this all off without telling you what the WoW killer is. Don't get me wrong, I did explain what the term was at the start of the video, and it might seem odd how even after all of this explanation of how WoW isn't going to die, that I'm now going to tell you what the WoW killer is. And it's honestly really simple. The only thing that can kill World of Warcraft is World of Warcraft. Now, to the majority of people, it won't be a surprise to hear that. The game is so ingrained in a lot of people, it still draws in new people, that there are multiple things that appeal to all different types of gamers. The only way I see World of Warcraft dying is if, 1, the development team makes a complete mess of things and absolutely destroys any reliability they have within the player base, which honestly is a minuscule chance, or a hyper-future realistic game like Ready Player One comes out that allows people to quite literally live a new life.
No king rules forever, my son.
But even then, I imagine WoW would still have some type of player base. To say the game is immortal would be a guess, honestly. Nothing's forever, and I'm nowhere qualified enough to actually dictate if the game will be alive in 5 years or not. But who knows, if the myth of WoW 2 is ever made possible with a new engine, then the legacy would be carried forward, I suppose, but even then, that wouldn't appeal to some people. WoW is a game that's been a big part of my life for a very long time, and honestly, Dragonflight has renewed hope for a better future for me within the game. I can see it being a game that I play for many more years to come if things keep going the way they're going, and I'm excited to see what happens and what content Blizzard bring out. I hope that others that have quit the game do come back to see what the game has to offer, especially with how they're planning on making more evergreen content. But honestly, that's all there is to say really. But I'm really interested to hear your thoughts and opinions. Do you think there's a game out there that has the potential to kill WoW? If so, what is it? Let me know down in the comments. If you liked the video, then please do like and subscribe to see similar content in the future. But for now, thanks for watching, and see you next time.